First, does anyone remember the 80s sitcom Cheers? Okay, some folks. For those of you that don't know Cheers, it was a very popular comedy based in Boston about an ex-baseball player who opened up a bar, and he had a whole cast of characters that would come to his bar. They were regulars. Does anyone remember what the theme song was from that show?
Everybody Knows Your Name.
Where everybody knows your name. And then the final question, we're 2 for 2. When the character Norm walked in the bar, what was his typical greeting? That's right, that's right. So what I've just described to you all is stage 1, evolution 1 of personalization in your industry. So it was a bar. When Norm walked in, they yelled out his name, and guess what they had for Norm at the end of the bar? His favorite beer, right? And depending on his mood, maybe it was 2 beers, but that was such a great example of everything starting at the restaurant, at the level, personal touch, stage 1, evolving into digital transformation. So that's going to be our theme for this afternoon. And when we start here, I want to highlight 2 words on this slide: anticipate and exceed. So you're going to have people that come to your restaurants that are regulars. You're going to have people that have come to the restaurant for the first time. For those that have come historically, we can anticipate what they like to order, what we may be wanting to offer to them based on prior history. For the people that haven't come to your restaurants, exceeding their expectations, right? So having that incredible experience, and then post-experience, engaging with them in such a way that the brand builds and they stay loyal customers and they broadcast to the highest echelons how great you all are. So quick agenda. Again, that's Brian and I. Do a quick intro into my firm. We'll talk about the problem that faces you all right now in this transformation and going from what I described as that personal touch into what you can offer now and activate now. We'll talk about the impact that that has for you all, and it's very significant. You should be excited about that. Solutioning against it, and then the exciting results. So I'm going to carry on more of the platform narrative. Brian, with his consulting background, is going to give more of a day in the life. And so when we talk about my firm, lots of big numbers out there. The one thing I want to resonate with this crowd is what my firm delivers, which is a personalization engine, is we're not that fuzzy kind of attribution nice to have. We're delivering big dollars, and we deliver that in a crawl, walk, run scenario. So we have customers like Dunkin' Donuts. We have smaller firms that are just dipping their toe into digital engagement, into making sure that that in-store experience and the experience after the store is absolutely perfect, tuned, and as profitable for them as could be. When we then talk about a journey that you can all go through, lots of stopping points, lots of activations, everyone, on how you can leverage technology to do things that had been historically in a personalized setting, but leveraging things like AI, machine learning, things like that. So you could see a big wheel of capabilities right there. I don't want to talk about that. What I do want to talk about a little bit is that middle part, which talks about as you look at your group and you've got people that are into the data and they're going to be in the marketing department, let's say, or an e-commerce group, and they're going to be running these programs. So those are business-oriented stakeholders. We can serve them, but we can also serve the tech people, right? Because your tech team, your development team are also going to want to see the signals, the testing, the personalization, the recommendations that are going to lead to building out your applications and improving them. So that's the stage team. That's what we're going to be talking about at high levels, but we're going to dig in a little bit, and now I'm going to pivot over to Brian to talk about fragmented experiences.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. So what Gary and I wanted to do today was, give you, especially since we're right before lunch, is give you some very pragmatic tips and tricks, things that you can really think about, challenges and opportunities. So when you leave here, you have something maybe pragmatic they can use. But before I jump into that, just wanted to maybe share a story and a perspective. From a story lens, we were talking, kind of in the run-up to all this, is my norm is a guy named Cliff. I call it Cliff 1.0. So Cliff is a manager of a diner, I live in Austin, Texas, and they manage about 4 or 5 locations around town that I've probably been going to about 5 years with my family, probably only maybe 2 or 3 times a month, so not super frequent. But Cliff's amazing. I walk in, like when we walk in as a family, he always fist bumps me. He knows my name. He knows my wife loves a booth, and he always asks, like, do you want the booth again or one of the booths against the wall? And he always knows my son. It's kind of amazing. He always knows my son wants steak and eggs in the morning. And so probably because it's probably the most expensive breakfast thing on the menu, but he knows it. He knows it. And so it just is a wonderful little experience. You walk in, you fist bump, yeah, corner table, steak and eggs, and like, let's go. And my wife actually has her coffee drink. So we know that this topic can get kind of overwhelming as you start looking at technology and data and use cases, and you start writing on your notepad, like, what do I do? Kind of the second part of that is the perspective. How we wanted to share was, what we do as a consulting firm. So I've been at this for about 20 years, and what we really help clients do is really think about, like, what is, and you've heard a lot of the great themes around here as well today and yesterday, like, how do you use data to drive actionable insights about who are your customers, who are your best customers, and how do you serve them well, and then how do you act on that? And our core thesis is, how do you whip around that as fast as possible with an experimentation kind of lens as well, so you're driving value. So with the Cliff 1.0 maybe, and the perspective on, like, how do you drive value, we can get into some of the kind of the observations or some challenges. And we put these up here. These really kind of near and dear to me. These are ones I've specifically gone through, and just wanted to share it as maybe as you're thinking about challenges you're dealing with, does this resonate? So like the one on the left is an email I get, kind of this, my son's almost 24, by the way. So I get the kids eat free. So what that shows me is that, especially because we all live in this space, is there's certainly data on, me that's, kind of from years ago, but it's certainly not recent. It's not stuff that I've done anytime recent. So I still get this, and of course it's kind of annoying, right? You have to like read through that. So one in the middle, I was in the Army, so I served for 5 years. And so if you've ever, I don't know if you have military logins on your experiences, especially like across device types, if you've ever tried to use them, they can be kind of clunky, especially when it doesn't persist, and you have to kind of do it over and over again. So I was like, ugh. Now, oftentimes I just choose to pay the extra whatever discount just to not have to log in because it's a thing. And then the last one on the right is it's a picture of a milkshake, if you can't tell. I'm lactose intolerant. I've been, not had a milkshake since probably 1990, when I loved the McDonald's milkshakes back in the day. But like what Cliff knows about me, to tie it back to what Cliff does, is Cliff knows he can upsell me on any kind of savory anything. Like if you want the hash browns, double hash browns with the extra sauce on it, yes, I always just say yes. Because he knows that's what I like. And he doesn't know whether or not, he doesn't know I'm lactose intolerant or not, because he never offers that. He sees what I do based on my behaviors, and he offers it. So kind of the tie-in here I wanted you to think about is not just those things, but as you're putting your kind of Cliff hat on, whoever your Cliff is in your life. How do you have opportunities to based on what you know and the insights you might have, actually serve them things that are relevant, that are timely, and allow them to do what they want to do when they want to do it. So kind of the personalization narrative. So jumping into some industry stats, we've probably all seen. The two numbers on there, I just wanted you to look at the 89 and the 57. So this is based on some research. You might have seen there's, in this case, there's about 1,000 respondents, 1,100 respondents. But I've, seen literally for probably 7-8 years, I always look at these annual surveys to kind of see what is customer sentiment. And as you might seen, the same kind of trend is they tend to not be great, and they tend to kind of drift worse. And so the thing I wanted you to take about is really 2 points off of this. One is this concept of what I call liquid expectations. As we all know, like even in your own lives and the people around you, your expectations shift on a pretty regular basis. So there's three, kind of the way I always help people think about it, there's 3 circles. There's kind of the immediate, in this world, like in the competitive set that you might look at, and you might be tempted to, like in the echo chamber, kind of like mimic other people's functionalities. That's certainly a circle that different guests will look at. But there's another ring outside of that, kind of the kind of leaders in different verticals, be it, you think about it in your world, if it's, you're interfacing with retail touch points, airlines, hotels, insurance, like all the places where they've invested heavily, where there's a transactional nature to the digital footprint, those are absolutely shaping expectations, as well as the last ring I call like the aspirational brands, where your guests certainly have relationships with those brands, so they have an expectation from that brand that their experience is being guided by them. So all of those rings are equally influencing your users and what their expectations are for what you're delivering. And what that means then is like the magnitude of a poor score over time only gets worse because it's like a river, like the river's flowing downstream and it's flowing away from you. So if you're not sticking with it, then the gap gets wider and wider. So how do we kind of help you think about that gap? Just to give you some, again, in the spirit of like pragmatic things to think about. And again, it's just like, I kind of look at this slide. When we created this, it was like, would Cliff do this? Would my man Cliff do these things, right? And just as you think about those experiences, just to kind of go through them a little bit. One, like in the upper left-hand corner, the lack of connectedness between the digital channels. I'm sure you've all felt that, especially when there's an app or multiple apps, like an iOS and Android app, mobile site, desktop site, because then the persistence across makes, just back to the military ID login, is there's not the persistence often, or there's different UI flows, so it just becomes hard. It doesn't feel like, you're a common entity, right? The hassle to reorder is you think about the idea of in a world where convenience matters, right? I want to rush in, order. I do this sometimes. I'll sit in front of Chipotle. I'll just order and sit in the parking lot 5 minutes, finish my call, rush in, get the thing, and come back out, because I can just sit there and do what I need to do on my timing, right? And so if that's hard to do and I got to go wait in that line, I'm probably not going to frequent that place very often. Irrelevant promotional campaigns is just, again, back to the getting the shake offer when I can't drink a shake. The difficulty customizing orders. When you think about, oftentimes like customizing is a path to higher customer lifetime value, higher AOV, but it also takes a minute. I have to have space to roll around in your menu, think about it. Do I really want to have double chicken today or something else? And if I feel hurried in the physical location, it's just easy for me to combo number one, get out of here. No onions. That'll be my big spicy change for the day. But what you'll miss is that I probably would have doubled up on all kinds of stuff if I had a minute to kind of roll around in it. On the loyalty programs, again, we all love as recipients, we love loyalty programs. As businesses, there's always this balance between making them feel value and see value, but at the same time, you don't want them to use it all because there's a lot of cost to that. So how do we think about the balance there? And then the inconsistencies across locations. Obviously, franchise models provide different complexities to work with. But again, as a user, especially within the same geo, if I'm going around to different locations in my city, if I can tell material differences in experience, that it really throws you off. And again, our idea with this was just to give you some thoughts to marinate on as your own customer experience journey. But also, when we think about Cliff 1.0 versus maybe a Cliff 2.0, is we're not trying to replace things, but we're trying to accelerate, augment, drive business value, and enable that in a scalable way. That's when it really is valuable, and it's really tied back to problems you're solving, use cases that drive value, and actually solutions and driven as experiments based on that.
Yeah, and one other point on this, Brian. So hopefully this doesn't scare or overwhelm, right? That's not the intent. We want to expose the areas that are troublesome, that could be hurting you, and then you all, as experts in your own individual businesses, prioritize these, assign resources, make your investments, right? And so it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
But understanding the breadth of it, right? Understanding where then you could surgically align your resources and your strategies is what we're going to be getting to in a couple slides. So hang with us. Don't be fearful. We just wanted to kind of set the table, and then we're going to get into solution some of this stuff.
Yeah. It's not meant to be a laundry list of here's 6 things to go do, just more like thought prompts. Yeah. Okay, and then from a business value, it all really matters. So, kind of a couple things to think about as you're thinking, how do I tie investments and experience back to the business so it really matters? So from the lifetime value lens, what we really encourage people to think about is do you know who your best customers are? How do you know that? Do you know the cohorts? Because when you think about driving lifetime value over time is really by driving your top cohort and even the second or third, right? As you're really helping them so if you understand the frequency of purchase, the days of purchase, in my case with Cliff, I only go on the weekends. Give me a Wednesday coupon, it's not going to do anything, right? Or give me a milkshake coupon, it's not going to do anything. But if there's something around an extra meal or something, you can see how that can really drive my behavior because you know something about me, you know about my behaviors. So who are your best customers? How do you know that, and how do you drive them to the next behavior? The average order value, again, obviously those visits are very precious. So if we think about how do we allow customizations, allow for convenience in a time-starved world, then I can just make it easier to either customize it or just buy that last customized order and go. Capturing new audiences. So we've all, I'm a Gen Xer, you can tell by my hairline. Technology I've been interfacing with technology for 25 years, so we all know my son is 23 now, right? So everything's, as we all know, all the trends, very mobile, has to be easy or I'm out. He's very, very fickle. And so it's interesting to watch, and how do we deal with that in a world, again, in a very use case, value-driven way. And then the ineffective marketing. The thing we wanted to say here was, is when you think about, and especially in this moment where there's like a race to there's a temptation for a race to the bottom, for high discounting as like the main way to keep foot traffic going. There's obviously a cost to that, there's a price to that. And we've watched in retail for 20 years how retailers race to the bottom, and that can get real ugly real fast. And so how do you, as you think about those investments, back to the point about like problems and solutions and value, how do you put some investment in the foundation? Yes, you have to solve for the here and now of value now, but how do you put investment in the foundation such that you're able to identify those users and serve them better incrementally over time? There's no silver bullets, but how do you serve them incrementally better over time such that you have a more durable, resilient revenue base versus riding the economic waves? So something to think about. Okay.
Awesome, thanks, Brian. So as we consider the engagement, right? Your customers, your prospective customers are engaging with you in all manner of technology. They could be at their home computer, big browser, they could be on a tablet, they could be on their mobile app. The proliferation predominantly is that mobile experience. So we want to dig into that just a bit with you all to talk about, again, areas of opportunity, areas to be considering as you're launching and activating your strategy. So looking at things like app layout and functionality, right? What's logical to you all? Gosh, if I put an order button here, if I put my top items on the top, if I put a little area of real estate on the right, that should be engaging and we should get the lift from it. Maybe, or maybe not. The human brain is interesting. So I've been in all the testing protocols and I've seen all the science behind it. You think you have it pegged, and then all of a sudden people start learning and engaging in a different way. So understanding those kinds of considerations, efficiency, which is effectively optimization. So you have a presence. You have an app, you have a kiosk, you have a big browser engagement with your customers. Are you able to optimize that quickly, right? Because your menu is going to change, your promotions are going to change, your LTOs are going to change rapidly. So working with dev groups, understanding cycles with all of that, and making sure that you're nimble and quick enough to react. And then finally, it's all about the UX, right? So good UX, they're going to use the app, they're going to use the digital engagement more and more and more. They're going to like you, they're going to tell people about you. And they're very fickle, as we all know. They have one bad experience with you, you may not see them again ever, or they're going to be reluctant. Now, you've got good food, you've got a good product, they're going to come back. But the margin for error right now is unbelievably thin. You all know that, you're all living that. So get the type of instrumentation and the architecture in place so that you give yourselves the best shot. And so as we talk about the journey and we look at, okay, so if we're completely new to digital transformation engagement, what are some of the things we should be thinking of initially? Test, and then when you're done with that, probably test again, right? And so there's the traditional A/B multivariate dynamic testing. The concept is simple, right? You have a current state, you have a challenger state, start to test, start to see what your customers, so this isn't the theoretical, you don't do this in a sandbox, you're doing this in a production site, and you can start to move traffic toward winning challenges as you test, but I can't express enough, the organizations that don't kind of embrace this are not taking full advantage of what they could be doing in their space. Now let's get proactive, right? We don't have to sit back and get all of our tuning in place and the foundation built. We're there, so we're cool. Now we want to engage Gary proactively. We know that he's ordered these products in the past. We know via geolocation that some bad weather's coming in. We know it's a particular time of day. We know that it's football season. All these data points that are either specific to the individual or are coming from other data sources. right? You may have CDPs, you may have CRM systems, all of that treasure trove of data, put it in a place where it can be acted upon, and that way Gary gets a chicken soup notification because it's cold out. And I've either had chicken soup in the past or I've eaten something similar to chicken soup. So now we're getting into kind of the cool stuff, right? Now we're getting into the AI and the machine learning and smarter technologies as it engages more. And then I thought it was important to just talk about where your customers want to be now in addition to the mobile app. Kiosks have gotten really good. There is a preference. My wife and sons, all they want to do is kiosks. And when they go in, they know who they are, so they're serving up past orders. They're serving up what they've consumed in the past. Oh, and by the way, here's 3 or 4 additional options. Super cool. It's fast, it's very accurate, and again, it's something that how your customers engage you, existing or prospective, this is something that, I've heard a couple of the sessions, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, kiosks were horrible, right? They were slow, they'd have error messages, the breakdown between supply chain wasn't perfect, and so it's really come upstream, and it's providing now the experience that the customers expect. So they're typically mobile enabling, or they're going into the kiosk, and they're taking care of their business that way. The final thing that I want to touch on is now the last mile. So we've engaged him at the point of sale. We've got Gary, we've got something that he's purchased in the past, it's personalized, I'm not an anonymous person. You've upsold or cross-sold me based on a propensity or profile that I have. Now you want to keep in touch with me, right? You want to talk to me about what's coming down the pipe, future promotions, things that are selling that would be appropriate for me and my family. Market to them. Please don't over-market to them. Please, there's a threshold, right, of good targeted drip marketing versus being obnoxious with it. And we kind of all know we've been recipients of it or we've activated it. So be careful about this. It's important. You want to have that nurturing relationship with your customers. You want to let them know that you care about them. You're not just blasting them for the sake of blasting. When it gets personalized, it gets really exciting. So we're going to end with the weaponry.
I think we did pretty well on time, too.
Yeah, I think we're good. So talk about our secret weapons.
At a high level, remember, at least in my world, it was about going from Cliff 1.0, my man who always knows us, to like what I call Cliff 2.0, which is really how do we, again, augment and accelerate their abilities as a company to really have those deeper relationships, to know who you are, to know, like, allow me to do what I want, when I want, and how I want to do it. Like, super simple, not to make this personalization word too complex. And then, so it's kind of point one, is like, so beyond the tactics. And then two, again, remember, like when you think about in which sequence do you do these or how do you value them, is what we encourage you to do is like mesh, what are your business goals and what are you trying to accomplish in maybe a 6-month window, 12-month window, something that's kind of more discrete. And then how do you mesh that with the customer's jobs? If you've been around product management frameworks, there's a framework called like jobs to be done. But it's a simple idea of measuring the customer and what are they trying to do, and where does that mesh with your business objectives? Because then what happens is these kinds of things, which are all good ideas, but which one do you do first? Which one has the most punch? Which one has the right level of effort that I can show value, get organizational buy-in to do another thing? And there's definitely a tapestry you're trying to create both internally to kind of keep the momentum going, as well as with your customer. So just some things to think about with the framework of how you think about this and present it internally.
So thanks for coming.